Picture this. You are seated in a quiet room. The world outside hums with voices, demands, expectations, and notifications, clamoring for attention. 1,000 little commands. Buy this, compare yourself, stay connected, perform. For a moment, you close your eyes. You inhale. In the stillness, you sense a subtle truth. Every external voice, every trending thought, every pressure to conform, none of them have to enter your mind. In that moment of pause, you glimpse something older, deeper. The door to your own mind. And you realize something profound. Nobody and nothing will ever rule this mind unless you allow it. That is not arrogance. That is not denial of external reality. That is simply the quiet reclaiming of sovereignty. The philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli wrote in an age of tyrants and shifting alliances. Yet the principle at the heart of his work applies to you and me just as much. The greatest power is not over others. It is over oneself. When your mind is unmoved by fear, expectation, and manipulation, the storms of life may rage, but inside you remain anchored. Today we explore exactly how you can reclaim this internal kingdom. The 6 subtle truths drawn from Machiavelli's philosophy, modern psychology and Stoic wisdom, not to dominate others, but to free your mind, to live from a place where your thoughts, beliefs, and values are chosen, not inflicted. So if you're ready to step out from the currents of influence, to pause the automatic programming, to inspect the gate through which every thought and demand enters, you're in the right place. Lean back, breathe in, and let us begin the journey of discovering that nothing external can ever rule your mind unless you open the gate. Number 1, recognize the algorithm of influence. Modern life is a constant stream of noise, a bombardment of alerts, ads, opinions, and expectations competing for your attention. Every vibration in your pocket, every scroll through your feed, is an attempt to shape what you think, want, and believe. Centuries ago, during Machiavelli's era, influence operated differently. Power moved through whispers in royal courts, strategic marriages, and the careful dance of alliances. Reputation and proximity to authority determined one's fate. Yet the principle remains the same. Whoever controls perception controls behavior. Today, that power has shifted from the prince's court to the digital screen. Algorithms now serve as modern courtiers, tailoring what we see, feel, and value based on patterns of engagement. Through repetition, the mind begins to accept certain norms without resistance, a psychological effect known as the mere exposure phenomenon. The more we encounter an idea, the more familiar and credible it feels. Combine this with social proof, the tendency to imitate what others approve of, and authority bias, our instinct to trust perceived experts or popular figures, and you have a perfect recipe for mental manipulation. Every like, share, or viral trend is an echo of collective approval, designed to keep you in sync with the crowd. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the ultimate evolution of influence, a system that doesn't need kings or threats to command obedience. It persuades you to police your own thoughts. The result is subtle. You start thinking what the algorithm wants you to think, desiring what others seem to desire, and fearing what others mock. To rule your mind in such an environment is no small act. It is an act of rebellion. It begins with awareness. The moment you recognize that your attention is the currency everyone is fighting for, you reclaim your sovereignty. Awareness disrupts conditioning. When you observe your reactions, why you click, why you agree, why you compare, you begin to see the invisible hand guiding your emotions. This clarity is power. It allows you to pause before responding, to question before believing, and to choose before consuming. Machiavelli once advised rulers to study human nature deeply in order to govern effectively. Today, that same advice applies inwardly. Study your own mind before the world governs it for you. Awareness becomes the modern form of freedom, the quiet, deliberate control over your own attention in an age designed to steal it. Number 2, master the art of internal silence. Machiavelli understood something that modern psychology has only begun to explain in detail: the power of stillness. In politics and in life, he knew that those who react impulsively often lose control of the narrative, while those who can wait, observe, and calculate gain mastery over both themselves and the situation. This principle extends beyond strategy into the workings of the human mind. A mind that cannot sit in silence becomes a slave to noise, reacting to every stimulus, every opinion, every flicker of emotion. In contrast, silence creates space between thought and response, allowing wisdom to surface. Neuroscientific research supports this. The brain's default mode network, the system active when our thoughts wander, can become overactive when we're constantly stimulated, leading to anxiety, confusion, and heightened suggestibility. In such states, people absorb external ideas without discernment, just as a ruler who listens too eagerly to every advisor loses his own judgment. Practicing silence, whether through meditation, journaling, or simply sitting without distraction, calms this mental noise. Studies from Harvard and Stanford reveal that even a few minutes of daily quiet time can lower stress hormones, enhance memory, and strengthen emotional regulation. This isn't just a relaxation technique, it's a strategic recalibration of the mind. Machiavelli would likely see silence as the pause before precision, the mental equivalent of drawing back an arrow before release. It's in these moments of deliberate stillness that you assess reality as it is, not as emotion paints it. Silence, then, is not emptiness, it's clarity, a fertile ground where perception sharpens and perspective deepens. In that quiet space, one learns to distinguish what demands action from what merely demands awareness. Just as a general studies the battlefield before moving his troops, the disciplined mind studies itself before making a choice. The ability to remain calm amid chaos, to respond rather than react, becomes a rare form of power in a noisy world. So when you practice silence, you're not retreating from life. You are mastering it. You're cultivating the patience that Machiavelli admired, the patience that transforms thought into strategy and strategy into victory. In that sense, the still mind is not passive. It is quietly preparing its next intelligent move. Number 3, convert fear into principle. Fear of judgment or loss has always been one of the most potent forces shaping human behavior. From childhood, we learn that approval equals safety and rejection equals pain. This conditioning becomes so deeply rooted that, as adults, many live as prisoners of invisible opinions, measuring every decision against what others might think or what they might lose. Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker, known for his pragmatic philosophy of power, understood this psychological truth. He wrote that fear can be a useful tool. It sharpens awareness, prevents recklessness, and teaches caution. But it must never become the master of the mind. When fear rules, the individual ceases to think strategically. They merely react, trapped in cycles of anxiety and compliance. History, psychology, and philosophy all agree that fear, when left unexamined, erodes freedom. Modern neuroscience provides insight into why fear holds such control. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, activates instantly in response to perceived threats, flooding the body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This fight or flight mechanism was vital for survival in ancient times, but in modern society, the threats are often social rather than physical. Disapproval, rejection, or failure. These are abstract dangers, yet the brain reacts as if chased by a predator. The result is paralysis, hesitation, and the inability to act in alignment with one's principles. Machiavelli's wisdom becomes relevant here. Rather than suppressing fear, one must convert it into something higher, a moral principle, such as integrity, honor, or self-respect. This transformation shifts your mental compass from reaction to decision. When you act from value instead of fear, your actions gain purpose and direction. You no longer seek validation, you create it. You stop asking what will they think, and start asking what is right for me. Psychologically, this is known as internal locus of control. The belief that you govern your own life, not circumstances or opinions. Every time you choose integrity over fear, you strengthen neural pathways associated with confidence and autonomy. It becomes a mental habit, a quiet rebellion against the tyranny of uncertainty. The moment you act from value, not fear, you reclaim your freedom. That is when true power begins, not the kind Machiavelli's critics accused him of advocating, but the deeper, timeless mastery of the self. Number 4, anchor to values, not voices. The world is a loud place. Everywhere you turn, someone is telling you how to live, what to value, and what success should look like. From social media trends to cultural expectations, it's easy to drift along without realizing that your actions are being shaped by forces outside your control. But when you make the shift from living by reaction to living by intention, guided by your own values, everything changes. Psychology refers to this as identity-based decision-making, a concept that suggests our most consistent and fulfilling choices come from who we believe ourselves to be, not from what the world tells us to do. This idea is rooted in cognitive behavioral theory and self-determination research, showing that when actions align with personal values, individuals experience higher levels of motivation, self-esteem, and emotional stability. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" you start asking, "What would a disciplined, honest, curious person like me do?" That subtle shift rewires your mind for integrity and direction. Honesty keeps you grounded in truth. It removes the mental clutter of lies, masks, and pretense. Discipline builds the bridge between dreams and reality, training your brain to follow through even when your emotions waver. Curiosity, meanwhile, keeps your spirit alive, turning every obstacle into an opportunity to learn. Together, these values form a kind of internal compass, something that can guide you even when life feels uncertain. Neurologically, this alignment activates the brain's prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for planning and self-control, helping you resist impulsive behavior driven by fear or social pressure. Over time, your identity becomes stronger and more stable because your choices are no longer random reactions. They're reflections of who you are at your core. Writing your values down is more powerful than it sounds. Studies in positive psychology show that people who articulate and commit to their core values report greater life satisfaction and resilience under stress. When you write them, you transform vague ideals into tangible anchors. You stop being pulled by the tides of approval, comparison, and external validation. Instead, you become the captain of your own mind. Life doesn't get easier, but it becomes clearer. So take a moment today. Define what you stand for, what truly matters to you. Then live by it. Because when your values become your compass, the noise of the world fades, and every step you take carries the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are. Number 5, use reflection as your strategic map. Machiavelli's brilliance didn't come from sheer instinct, it came from observation. He spent years studying rulers, wars, and human behavior, not to memorize history, but to decode it. Every event, every decision, and every betrayal revealed a pattern, and those patterns helped him understand power at its core. You can apply this same method inwardly. Instead of studying kings, study your own reactions. Reflect on moments when you've given away your mental authority, times when anger, fear, or insecurity ruled your next move. This internal observation isn't about judgment, it's about discovery. It's the art of becoming your own strategist. When you react impulsively, you lose control of your inner state, and that's where weakness hides. Machiavelli would call this a failure to govern oneself, because before a ruler can lead others, he must first master his own mind. The best way to uncover your inner patterns is through journaling. Writing forces the mind to slow down, and when it slows down, it starts to see. Each entry becomes a record of cause and effect. What triggered you, what emotion followed, and how that emotion shaped your choices. Over time, you'll start to notice the recurring themes, the same words that wound you, the same situations that unsettle you, and the same habits that sabotage your progress. And here lies the turning point. Seeing the pattern means you can change it. Neuroscientists even confirm this. Consistent journaling activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making, while calming the amygdala, which governs emotional reactivity. In essence, you're rewiring your brain to respond with logic instead of impulse. That's what Machiavelli did in his own way. He documented, analyzed, and refined. He turned chaos into clarity. The more you write, the more power you reclaim from your emotions. You begin to act, not react. You start recognizing that not every thought deserves attention, and not every feeling demands action. Eventually, you become the strategist of your own mind, a Machiavellian ruler within your own kingdom of thoughts. That's the ultimate form of self-discipline, turning introspection into mastery. The pen becomes your sword, the page your battlefield, and awareness your victory. So study yourself the way Machiavelli studied power. Observe your thoughts, record your responses, and from those patterns, build the unshakable empire of your mind. Number 6, live as the self-ruled sovereign. Ruling your mind isn't about suppressing thoughts. It's about mastering how you respond to them. Most people believe that mental strength comes from pushing away emotions or silencing uncomfortable ideas, but true control lies in awareness, not avoidance. When you realize that every thought is like a visitor in your mental house, you stop letting them rearrange your furniture. Instead, you decide who stays, who leaves, and what tone the conversation takes. Psychologists call this metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. It's what allows you to step back, observe your thoughts, and choose your response instead of reacting impulsively. Ancient philosophers like Epictetus and modern psychologists alike have emphasized this truth. While you cannot always choose what happens to you, you can always choose how you interpret it. This idea is also supported by neuroscience. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making, can override emotional impulses from the amygdala when you practice mindfulness and emotional regulation. In other words, your brain can be trained to stay calm even in chaos. Each time you pause before reacting, whether to anger, fear, or anxiety, you strengthen that neural pathway, just like a muscle being exercised. Over time, this builds mental resilience, making you less controlled by external chaos and more guided by internal stability. Owning your reactions doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you live consciously. The world will always try to provoke, tempt, and distract you. People will project their opinions, expectations, and judgments onto you. But when you learn to rule your mind, you stop being their puppet. You stop allowing external noise to dictate your internal peace. This is what the Stoics meant when they said, "Man conquers the world by conquering himself." It's not arrogance, it's inner authority. Every moment of awareness becomes a small act of rebellion against unconscious living. You are no longer at the mercy of moods, media, or manipulation. Instead, you become deliberate in how you think, how you feel, and how you act. This is true sovereignty. Not power over others, but power over yourself. The mind that once wandered aimlessly now bows to discipline and purpose. You stop chasing control of the outer world and start mastering the only kingdom you truly own, the one within. This journey is not about becoming emotionless. It's about being free enough to feel, think, and act from authenticity. The 6 steps: recognizing influence, mastering silence, converting fear, anchoring to values, reflecting strategically, and living sovereignly, will not make you immune to the world, but immune to its control. Your mind is your kingdom. Guard it, nurture it, and remember, nobody and nothing will ever rule your mind unless you hand them the crown.